I think you watched the video that I sent you about the sauna thing. I
Yeah.
think that sauna brainstorming happened in the 1987, so maybe it was before you joined the discussion with other founders of BEST.
Sure. I was at the second meeting, but
In
the first
Grenoble.
meeting wasn't really about BEST. So that's why I think that overplaying the sauna meeting is a bit unfair to those who, in my opinion at least, created BEST, which was not me, by the way. I was along, but there were others much more central in that.
How was it? Because I know you were very much looking forward to a student, like making a student organization basically. But what was the student organization landscape at that time? Because I think in the 80s it was a bit different. Now we have so many student associations that students have such a wide range of choices.
Yeah,
Anyway, I'll let you
it
start.
was probably, in a way, it was a bit the same. The student organization that worked across Europe or internationally at that time was mainly IASTA, which I think is still around. But they, of course, like now in most countries, they offered summer vacation internships or jobs to students in other countries. In a few countries, they were at the time doing a bit more than that, but mostly they were for jobs, summer jobs or student jobs. Then there was at least one organization that coordinated electrical students doing electrical sciences. I'm not quite sure what the name of the organization was, but there was one for that. There were one quite large one for economy students. And some of the universities, even though we who started BEST were in technical universities, some of our universities included students of economy. So that was a reference. And the reason why I don't think it's completely fair to the guys in Grenoble who arranged the meeting where I would say we created BEST. The reason was that the guys in Stockholm, in the meeting that you referred to, what they wanted to do was to create an organization for mathematics and physics students. So they were looking at the organization that the electrical students have had and wanted to do something similar. So the challenge was that when they invited to that meeting, and they invited then students from universities that their university, the KTH in Stockholm, had contact with. The students that arrived were not all mathematics or physics students, because in some universities, technical universities, those studies were mixed, but most were from mathematics and physics. So really the only thing that they decided, at least that's what they told us, those who were at the second meeting in Grenoble in 88, which was my first meeting, what they told us, there were very few there who'd actually been in Stockholm, so it wasn't much of a continuation. That's why I don't really think that BEST was created in Stockholm, because there were very few there, and there were none. The organizers of the event in Stockholm were not in Grenoble. So, but what happened was that the students from Grenoble had taken it upon themselves to arrange a second meetup, and they decided that they would invite people from technical universities and not care whether they were from mathematics or physics or whatever. And so they invited, they got hold of a few more universities than they had in Stockholm. I can't remember how many right now, but that's in the records. And they invited people to come down for a week at the same time as they had their some kind of winter feast in Grenoble in the university, and had set up a great week where they had both discussions about creating a student organization and lots of BEST fun stuff. And in that meeting, an Italian guy who didn't continue afterwards, he was from University of Torino. There were two guys there from University of Torino. The other one continued really making the best LBG quite large in Torino. But this guy, the thing that he came up with was a name. Because the vote or the original suggestion was to call it EST, European Students of Technology, and that didn't sound so well with quite a few of the students there in their languages. So he came up with a suggestion of BEST. So that's how the name came up. And in that meeting, we actually started discussing having an organization with statutes, a bit about what the statutes should be like, what we wanted to achieve, so on and so forth. And the guys from Grenoble who were there were quite central, I think, in making sure that things actually were not just a happy get-together, but also was the beginning of an organization. And when that meeting was finished, we decided upon two main things. Well, first of all, we voted on the name. So after that, we knew we were best. The second was that quite a few of us decided, or we decided that we wanted to go back home and create local best groups. So to go to the universities we were from and try to make a group where we would attract other students, apart from those of us who were there. And the third main thing was that the people from Eindhoven in the Netherlands said that they would arrange the next meeting in half year. So I think that more pivotal than a sauna in Stockholm, but that contributed as well. I think BEST is a long series of events making the organization that is there today. And I think that Sauna is a starting point to me in Grenoble. The decision to make a student organization for all technology students and the name BEST, those two were the main thing. And then in the next meeting, which was in Eindhoven, that was a very difficult meeting because the students who were arranging that BEST meeting, they had decided that BEST was dead. They had tried to contact, I don't know, only one or I can't remember, very few BEST groups, and they didn't really get any contact. And they decided, no, BEST isn't anymore. So we'll invite everybody, like we said, but instead we'll try to inform them about other options, other existing student organizations that we can join. And the most central one that they came up with was the AEG, AEGEE. So we had presentations from those, we had presentations from a couple of others. And those of us who came there, there were a few of us who came there and actually had created local best groups. I was one of them. And I had created a local best group and had with me one of our best members in Trondheim. There were people, the ones I remember as most active there were us in Trondheim, Lisbon, had made a big group. The two girls in Poland who then, I don't know, they disappeared some years later out of BEST, but they were very central in having a strong group.
I'm actually curious now. So you're saying that so this Eindhoven meeting, this like what year was this?
In 89, spring of 89.
Okay, so basically at the meeting before was in Grenoble.
No, hang on. In the autumn of 88. Grenoble was spring of 88, and then this meeting was in late autumn, I think in November of 88.
Okay, so basically what happened is that in Grenoble you agreed, okay, let's create local groups,
Yep.
And then based on what they said that best was that, like, what is this attempt of connection that they tried to do without reaching? What?
They thought that best was dead.
But so this is a thought that they had.
Yes. And then some of us who came there very much didn't think that best was dead because we had created local groups.
Okay, so it's because of their point of view, like, okay, of course there was no social media, so unless you constantly speak with someone,
yeah. Well, there was what was it? Telegram? No, telefax. And telephones, and letters, but they could use the telefax because we use that quite a bit to communicate, because then you can send a letter instantly, of course, which was better than nothing. And we had email, I guess. No, we didn't. No, you're right. We didn't have anything like that.
No, email came a bit later, yeah.
Yeah, but it wouldn't have been very hard to reach out to find the rest of us. So those of us who had, I seem to remember we had 5 local best groups at that time, but I can't remember. I remember it was us, and very much so Lisbon with Paolo, who was very strong, and then there, and then Dominica and Katarina from Warsaw, but there were 2 others as well.
Okay.
Right now, who eluded me, but we were very upset that there was no time set aside to discuss best. So what we did, and that was a group of us, and there I think one of the Swedes was central, amongst other things. Yeah, there were quite a few. We decided in a bar in an evening, because that's when we had the time, that we wanted to discuss best. Should we have this organization that we started discussing instead of just joining somewhere else? So a group of us, I think the guys from Barcelona with Bernard were active as well. Anyway, a group of us decided we wanted to discuss more best. So first we got everybody in the bar to shut up, which was a bit unfair because the bar wasn't only for us who were there at that meeting. At least this is how I remember it, that we sort of squeezed out the other students there. Not too many, but still a few. And then we sort of had some discussions in the bar at night. And then we realized that, okay, the other people here also want to go on with the idea of best. And then we insisted to the organizers that part of what was set up for some kind of presentation or something that they had prearranged the next day, that that would be cancelled and we would discuss best instead.
Mm-hmm. So, but because originally the meeting was to discuss best, it was changed to something else because they had this thought. Okay, very interesting, actually. Very
by
dramatic,
the students
I would say.
in Eindhoven. They changed it because they didn't think there was any best.
Okay, fair enough. But I have like another question that is like, I think, even more important. So what was in the previous meeting? So first of all, how did you invite the people that met eventually there? And how, like, what was the message that came out that, like, brought everyone to go and be so active to create a local group in their own university?
Good question. Well, the first one's easy to answer. So at the time when the people from Grenoble were inviting, it was the same as it was the other times when we were inviting new people. We were inviting those who were from the schools that our universities had collaboration with. Because at that time, as I think it's probably a bit now, there was some quality differences in the universities in Europe. And if we were going to get our university along with us to help us in giving us funds and supporting us, if you wanted to do things for and with students in other countries, it helped greatly that it was the right universities. And so we knew this. So when the people from Grenoble they invited those who had been in Stockholm, and then they invited, in addition, some of those universities that their university were in contact with. And I think that was the same in Eindhoven. In Eindhoven, there were two universities at least that hadn't been in the first meeting. And one of them was became very central. One was University of Dresden, which at the time was Eastern Europe and very, very closed. So there was this guy from East Germany who had to report into the police every 24 hours to the police in Eindhoven, and he'd never been outside East Germany before.
Wow!
So that was quite cool. And the other thing was that there were two people there from Hungary. One was a girl who was very active. She spoke really good English. I think her father, she had lived in America for some years. Her father was a diplomat. And she was like very outward going, very active, very positive person. And the other one was a typical a party member selectee. So he didn't say much, and he sort of, he was not very active at all in that meeting. But the girl, Chilla, is the one who actually made the LBG in Hungary and made Best So Big in Budapest. So she was new in Eindhoven, and one of the main, how shall I put it, recruits from there. So then what this idea was that from Grenoble that we really liked, well, as far as I remember it, because that was really important to me, one of the major things that we decided was that we wanted to make a student organization that was for the students of our universities, not only for those of us who were a part of the organization. Like the electrical students organization, that one was very much for those who wanted to be involved in their university. They would be part of the organization, and then they would go and meet the other students from the other countries. Our idea was to make a student organization where we who were actively involved would try to do something so that the other students in our universities who were not necessarily so actively involved themselves in BEST would be able to go for an exchange or do something together with the others. So we're really very keen on the idea of making this something that would open Europe for Europeans, so that people would actually start to feel more like Europeans, and I won't say less like Norwegians or Portuguese or Dutch or whatever, but to feel also European. So that's why I felt very strongly now that I saw the issue between the Ukrainian and the Russian LBG groups, which I very well understand. I can understand that the issue is difficult for the Ukrainians, but we were making this organization to try to promote the idea of Europe wherever we could, not local countries, even if it was there were some problems. There were some big problems at the time as well, of course, since there was still the Iron Curtain at the time when we made BEST. Mm-hmm. So that was still there in Eindhoven, and it was still there in the next meeting in Berlin. Yeah. So I think this was actually what we, in a way, fell for, the idea of making a student organization for students of technology. And we were a bit broad on the technology part, so technology and those kind of sciences. And because in some universities they're mixed, of course, so it was hard to be too strict. But technology, that's a T. And the other was to make something that would be valid for more than those of us who are the active ones.
Does that definitely.
About that, the mission, promoting Europe among Europeans. Yeah, that you actually anticipated one of my next questions, because it's the mission is still valid. It's very much actual, like for nowadays. But it's what's hard is how to apply it in the right way, right? How to convey the message across the different groups, but also because, someone questioned the borders of Europe were discussed, I think, about 20 years ago. I think it was the beginning of 2000s. But then at some point, BEST said, okay, Yekaterinburg is already invest. We want Europe to be up to that, basically the Urals mountains. So that was the definition of Europe. So I guess that's all depends on the definition and the will of local groups to strengthen the bondings. Although, like now, I know it's absurd. We passed from a times when you have to telefax each other, a time when you can have like instant messaging, but it's anyway not easier to connect people. It's easier to communicate instantly, but not easier to connect people. I don't know if you want to, if you have any thoughts on this point.
I could just say I agree. I can agree by I can give an example. The next meeting that we had after Eindhoven was in Berlin. And the people organizing the meeting in Berlin, they had said yes to organize a best meeting, but they weren't, how shall I put it? They didn't really want to be super active in best somehow. They wanted to organize a meeting. It was funny, and they were really nice, the guys organizing the Berlin meeting. But they were like, well, we said that we'd arrange this get together or best, and they did, and they gave us all the time we needed and all that. And we had agreed that what we would do in Berlin was to discuss the statutes of best. And two guys from Grenoble, especially one, had taken it upon himself to create a suggestion for the statutes, or I can't remember. Maybe we already had some that were the very early suggestion from when we were in Grenoble. I can't remember that, but at least for the for the Berlin meeting, we're going to discuss the statutes. And in that meeting, we had a big, how shall I put this? A big challenge. Because we had in a way a schism between the students who were from Vienna, who were going to arrange the next best meeting because they had already agreed to do that, and the students from France. And this was an ideological difference, but I think also a cultural one. The students from the University of Vienna were very much left-wing, and they were very skeptical of having a student organization where we had too much interference from private companies. So, and whereas the French couldn't see any challenge at all with that. The more the merrier, the more the better. And I think that had to do with, well, political standpoint, but also because they think differently, at least in the schools that we had from France and the University of Vienna. And I think the reason why I was elected the first president of BEST, which I was in that meeting, was that much of my role was to try to get the group as a whole to see through their differences and see their similarities instead. And to me, that was very easy because I think there's a lot more similarities when you have a group of technological students who really are interested in trying to cooperate rather than ruin things for each other. They want to talk more together. They want to have more fun. It's not very difficult really to find common ground, but you just have to show people what is actually the common ground. But I think remote communication, not sitting together long enough to talk about those kind of issues, not having somebody to intermediate, so somebody who can see both sides and try to make people understand each other. I think, it very much boils down to culture, because people will, like in this example with the people from Vienna and the people from France, neither spoke great English. Both are good enough, proficient in English, but not great English speakers. And I would hear, let's say I would hear a French say something, one of the French guys who were in this dispute. There weren't only those two, but I'm just using that as an example. One of the French guys would say something, and then the Austrian would respond as if he or she had heard something completely different to what I'd heard, and the other way around. So a communication problem that was somewhat about language, but just much about the glasses that you're wearing, your cultural glasses, from what you hear. And this was extra special there because there were some political differences too. But yeah, I think that's the main thing about the challenge when you're working with best, but also the reason why best. Because then if they then sit down in a bar afterwards and spend a lot of time talking together, those differences will get smaller because they'll start to realize that, okay, maybe we're not so different after all. So yeah, that's my take at least.
No, thank you. Very interesting. I know it may sound simple, but yeah, in the end, you see, in 30 years, 35 years, the challenges more or less are still the same. So that's funny to have this confirmation. I did read some of the book of Best. I don't know if you are aware.
I know there's a book, yeah.
Yeah, History of Best. I think there were two versions, one initial one, and then there was like a remake in 2009 for the 20th anniversary of Best. Yeah, that's also where I saw your name as well. By the way, I will ask you later if you can provide any other names of peoples that, in your opinion, would be nice or even funny to have a kind of a informal interview with, like this one. But yeah, sure. I'll ask you later in writing, so you have time to think about that. Any other memories that you have around Best? For example, we did interview one alumnus. He became alumnus about 10, 15 years ago, and he said one of the strongest memories was traveling. I don't know if for you was the same, or you have any other anecdotes, not necessarily around travel, but I know that Best was one of the main points of Best in the 80s and 90s as well, was facilitating travel. But there may be something else that you remember was quite wow experience.
Yeah. Well, I have one. Again, a bit of cultural differences, but one that really stuck because it was really funny from that meeting in Grenoble. And I think that was actually a great meeting. It was one of the best I was at. They had both such a lot of fun lined up for us at the same time as enough time to discuss. So it was great. So one of the things that they did, Philippe and the others who arranged the meeting in Grenoble, was that they arranged a day out when we were going to travel from Grenoble to Lyon to visit the Renault car factory there. So we went by bus all together, and we looked at the car production line and could ask all the questions we wanted and so on. And by the time we were finished, we were both tired and rather hungry. And what they had done was that they had arranged that we should go to a small village in the Rhone Valley, where we were going to be served some French specialty food and the new Beaujolais that had just come out. So that sounded great for a bunch of students.
I can totally see this coming. Let's go.
And then when we went there, we were in the second floor above a bar in a small village. And we were served the French specialty, which proved to be something very like the Scottish haggis, intestinal sausage. And people first of all, the food was a bit late in coming, and so people had definitely started to drink the Beaujolais. And then when the food came, most people didn't like it at all. So they continued drinking the Beaujolais without having much to eat. So in the end, we had to go back again to Grenoble by bus, of course. And you know that as Scandinavians, we're quite often known to drinking too much. So I don't drink so much. I mean, I drink wine, especially good Beaujolais, fine, but I'm a bit careful. But it was very funny to see when we went into that bus that the ones who had, where you could most see the fact that they had just been drinking and not eating anything, they were the Southern Europeans who are supposed to be more used to drinking, but they weren't used to drinking so much without having anything to eat. So like the Belgians, I remember, and probably, and more the Southern Europeans were a bit, yeah, you could see they drank too much. But the Finns who were there, they had drunk twice as much as anybody else, and they were completely sober. So that was a very funny experience, one that I really remember from Best. Probably typical Best anecdote.
I can imagine that the bus ride was an entertaining one there.
Yes, it was very entertaining. We had to stop a couple of times.
Amazing.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was changing topic now, looking more at the future than at the past. Well, let's say something in between. A question I like to ask, I also ask it to myself. So I did some self-introspection as well before asking others. What's the piece of advice you would give to your 20-year-old or 18-year-old self? You choose the age, but it should be more or less either students, university student, or fresh graduate, because because I think this interview would be useful as a piece of advice and piece of knowledge for current Best members, but also
excuse me, sorry,
recent alumni especially.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. No, the question is over.
Related to what? Related to in what way? Because I assume that you're asking related to Best in some way.
Not necessarily.
But which
Could
aspect?
Yeah, not necessarily, because something I noticed, for example, is when current Best members ask for advice to some alumni, it's mostly related to Best, which is fair enough. But I don't know, maybe there's something more important. I don't know, that not necessarily career related, could be also something about personal relationships, or it doesn't have to be professional. It doesn't have to be Best related, as long as it's something that in your opinion would be relevant.
Okay, yeah, I can try, because one of the things that really almost scares me at the moment is what is happening as far as I can see around the world, but Europe is a very easy way to see that with what's happening in Poland and Hungary, and especially, of course, now with Putin's invasion of Ukraine. The fact that people are starting to listen more to what they want to believe than to look at science, to want to elect strong dictators who can tell them what to do instead of using their own mind. And I think one of the really good things about students of technology in any variety is that usually, if we use our heads, we are competent in the sciences. We can understand what's happening in terms of being able to read and interpret scientific evidence, and to use that both to try to further that understanding in others, and to stay open-minded using that yourself. And then if you connect the thing that you can do with best, that is to, instead of thinking of people who are not like you, but are a bit different because they have a different culture and so on, to try to learn more about them, be interested in them, learn more about them, engage, try to be open and curious towards the other people who are different, that rather than to look at them as enemies or different or something like that. I think that's what BEST is about, and that's the advice that's why it's so important that we have BEST, and that BEST is also not just for us who really have understood it and get engaged in the organization itself, but that we try to make others see what we've seen. I think that's advice, or the
it's quite of a challenge, right?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? But if we can manage, if we can get more other Europeans that we can influence to be more open to people from the other countries of Europe, I think that's why I think it's important, if possible, to keep the dialogue open with the Russian students. I'm not talking about Putin by any means, but the Russian students. At least we'll have someone in Russia whom we hopefully, once we're post this terrible thing that's happening, will be able to, if we're lucky, influence the society there in the way that we would like on behalf of BEST, for example. That's a really hard part.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, yeah, this has been my same point when I heard about this dissidence that there was, like, between Ukrainian LBGs and the Russian ones. It's like, the truth is, this is exactly what we need to do. We need to open that channel, to keep it open, because we are one of the few channels that can stream neutral kind of information across. And for them, losing this channel would be probably losing, like, if not 100% of the sources, well, a good part of what they can rely on, like, as a as the truth. I would say, the Russians who managed to go abroad and see the world for what it actually is, that is not a menace for Russia at all, they would never agree with such a war, right? The problem is, exactly, who doesn't have this kind of aperture. Yeah.
And then, absolutely agree. And then for the Ukrainians who are in a terrible situation, of course, as best, we must see what we can do to help them, but not by making their enemies become even more estranged. I don't think. Though I discussed this with my father, and he was like, well, it's not good. You have to tell the Russians that they can't keep on doing this. And I agree, of course, but I can't understand how it will help us if we just say to the Russians, sorry, we don't want to talk with you anymore because you've elected such a lousy leader. That it's too simple. But
yeah, in fact, complex situation require complex complex answers. It would be naive to think otherwise, right? Yeah.
But yeah, it kind of surprised me what you said at the beginning when I asked you for a piece of advice you would give to your 20-year-old self, that is like, try to separate the reality, so the data, and the perception. Not just the perception, but actually it's what you want to believe. It's funny because I just recently discovered this, because in theory, like from a rational point of view, it's obvious, right? You have data I look at data, I make my decisions based on data. But when you look at data, sometimes the next step after looking at the data is like, okay, this is the reality, so this is what I do. But it's not like the process is not so like you are rushing too much sometimes, right? You miss some steps. It's like, no, the data tells you just this, then the interpretation and what you want to believe is very different. Then you make a decision. Then at some point in the future, you think, oh, that was a bad decision. Why? Then I go back, I analyze the previous steps, and I was like, actually, I was not making the decision based on the data. I was thinking I was doing that, but in reality, I was making the decision based on what I wanted the reality to be. But that is not the past, that is the future. I want it to be that way. But what is the way it is right now? So yeah, good point, very good.
It actually this it's quite funny, this this saying to the younger self. It reminded me of an interview that I don't remember where I saw, but I just remember this quotation, and says, what do you want to say to a person or a young person that will be like in the world in 100 years and maybe will lead, whatever. And the answer was very, very precise, was look at the data. It is it's really stuck in my mind, because it's it's like, so be rational, be rational what you see. It's quite funny to see that someone would say it even to the younger self. So
No, I think both to the younger self and to anybody else. And I think I would say to my younger self now, not when I was younger. I think the issue is much bigger now than it was then, because when I was young, we had the large newspapers that if somebody there started to write lies, there would be somebody else who would pick it up and say, what's this? This isn't true. And then you'd get the debate. Today, there are so many places where you can write lies without anybody objecting to you, and a lot of people seeing it and believing it without questioning it.
Yeah, mostly there is a lot of confirmation bias in other places that would create a sort of ecosystem of lies. So that is a bit the problem, maybe.
Yes, but also that was possible before too. But right now, there are so many places where you can go and do that without being fact checked. Whereas before, when you had just a few sources, those sources were what everybody looked at. So if something there was disputable, if Trump had gone there and said, no, I won the election, there would have been just that small amount of sources where everybody would be discussing. Right now, what happens instead is that those who don't like the true answer, they just jump away from all those discussions and select their own information reality in a way. And that, I think, is a new challenge that wasn't there before. So I would say this to myself if I was young today. It wasn't so valid when I was younger. It wasn't as valid. Probably valid, but not as
yeah. No, good point. Very good point. My next question would like to be what value, in your opinion, could the alumni of BEST provide to both younger alumni and also students, BEST students?
One of them is actually the ability to choose jobs, of course, because that's one of the big challenges, I think, to make those career decisions. But I know that BEST already does that. But I think that's one of the big values that you are able to provide once you have worked for a while that wasn't there when you were a student. In addition, I can really see when this issue came up with the Ukrainians wanting to expel the Russians, there was a group, informal group being created, not by me, but where some of us who had been active at the start, creating it, were involved in discussing what is really the value of BEST. I think to connect like that across the different age groups, that's a real value, because then you'll end up having a perspective that's not just from the last 3 years. You'll end up having a perspective that's longer. As long as us oldies aren't able to draw the younger ones back into some conservative, oh no, that's what it's always been like, we need to go like this. Because that, I think, then I hope the younger ones won't listen to us, because that, to me, is not what BEST should be about. But to keep the values still as active and hopefully as fresh as they were, so that the organization doesn't start to take off in ways it shouldn't. To me, the alumni is a bit like what is wrong with the American society, at least to me right now. The problem is the justices of the High Court. They are elected for very many years, and when they are elected politically, right, like they are right now, they can keep the society in the state that it was 30 years ago, if they want, for a very long time, or 50 years ago, or whatever. And that's a challenge. If we in the alumni become too active, we'll become like the Supreme Court of the US, keeping the old and outdated values alive. But at the same time, what's happening there now is that you have only one faction that is very strong in the Supreme Court. And that's what we can counteract if we have the alumni active enough with many enough members, that you'll have the different, if there are factions, you can involve the different factions so that you don't get just one bunch of people winning over the rest in some way, which can happen really at any time. But yeah, so I think that's what is the main thing. Giving contact with what's actually happening after you're a student, and doing that across Europe, which is something which is an added perspective that you wouldn't get without BEST. Well, you would with ESTA, but not without either ESTA or BEST. And then having the ability of a value discussion across the ages.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because I recently learned that BEST have revamped their BEST Career Center to basically arrange this summer some pairing between alumni and BEST students. I'll send you the link just in case you want to join. So that would be about mentoring, basically mentoring BEST students. But yeah, so it's good to see that it's going more or less in the right direction. But yeah, it's a very good point anyway, also about the let's say role of advisors somehow, or monitors. By the way, yeah, we didn't introduce. I always forget to do the introductions. The introductions are always like an hour later. Davide was the first president of the BEST Alumni Network, the BEST Alumni Association, that was founded in 2018. I recently joined the advisory board together with Timo Envio, who was not able to join today. And yeah, obviously Ida was the founder of LBG Trondheim. David, I don't remember if I told you before, and then she also became the first president of BEST International as well. So it's very interesting to hear her perspective on many points. So if you have any more questions, of course, Ida, just let us know if you have to leave at any point. Don't worry, just raise your hand, say bye, guys. That's
hang
enough.
on. I'll just show you my view. So let's see.
Oh wow, that's quite a view.
That's where. So I'm just sitting here while my husband is out fishing.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm on holiday.
Where is this? Where is this?
It's in northern Norway, in Lyngen, north of Tromsø.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think I will need to do some more visits of the.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah, Nordic,
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think I have like a very standard and practical question. So I put quite some effort during a couple of years that I was leading the organization to try and involve the alumni, and we tried in like from different aspects. So there are these three factors. You need alumni to have someone taking care of more events, or to have the resources to take care of more events. You need more events to do more interesting things or valuable things, and like you need more valuable things to motivate more alumni to get into the organization, right? So there is this triangular situation in which it's very difficult to pick so to understand on which focus we like where we can focus to have the number of alumni joining, like, and increasing, and eventually having more activities, and eventually what would you say that for you in particular would be key to join?
I have joined because there has been some alumni activities before. And what I find most difficult is the fact that the alumni in general, almost all of them have been a lot younger than I have. So I mean, I don't mind age, but it's just that we're from, so for me, in joining and becoming active, one issue is that, of course, I would like to help best, but also in what's in it for me, some of it is actually being able to keep in touch with the people that I knew when I was active. And at least at the events or the few things that I've been involved with, we're not even close. I mean, I'm like a dinosaur in comparison. So
yeah, dinosaurs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but okay, so a much older dinosaur. So I wouldn't mind joining. I wouldn't mind being active. I could, of course, be trying to involve some of the others that I know myself. But I think what I need is some sort of framework to make that possible, if you see what I mean. A framework where it's possible to work together with also those who are from my time in Best, which is from 88 up to, when did I leave? I lost completely touch around 93. So yeah, the start.
Yeah. And okay, I understand.
That would be central for me.
I totally understand, and I think like what we tried to do is was a bit of trying to get people from every generation, let's say, and yeah, although it's difficult to define generations within Best, but still, let's say, but yeah, I don't know. Like this is doesn't want to sound like a complaint, although, but I found this very difficult to actually get the first one right. So I need this first person that has these 5 friends, and these 5 friends to get the other 5, and then I have a generation, right? the other one will come.
But
so this is
yes,
what I found extremely.
Yeah, I'm with you. But what is necessary to do that is a concept. Which concept we're going to use when arranging this? I mean, I can be part of discussing the concept, but I think to do that, to get those first 5 who then get the other 5, what is it we're getting them to? What kind of concept are we working with? Do we meet up regularly? What do we? What's our aim? What are we trying to achieve when we do things together? So on. So to get that concept, either to have it served or be part of discussing it, both are possible. But I think that that concept needs to be there if we're going to start recruiting from the different age groups. And I agree, there's not it's a continuous thing. So the people that I know, some of them started in 92 and continued till 2002. I mean, so people are in different zones, sort of, which again makes it hard to divide up into concrete groups. All the groups will be crossing over into each other.
Yeah, but this is why I don't think so. Like, my point is, it shouldn't be an age matter. It should be a side effect. The fact that when you start gathering these people, eventually you will find the ones that are willing to somehow keep in touch and also were in the same age period. So for your particular age period is going to be the challenge, the biggest challenge, because it's the most likely that actually have completely lost any kind of connection or interest with this.
No. I mean, when we were having that discussion with Anders and the others related to the Ukraine Russian incident, I am still in touch with some of the people who were active at the same time as I was. Not a lot in touch, but I went to Hungary, for example, not so many years ago and met up with a couple of them. And I was able to get in touch with, a small group of those. But the thing is, so it isn't to find them. That's easy. There are so many people who can be alumni in Best. And so to find out how, what it should be for the alumni, what we should do, is important, I think, to do it. It's maybe this is a problem for me especially, and maybe now I'm not so known anymore. But at the meeting that I was at last, which was, I can't remember, sometime between 2000 and 2010, and right now I can't remember when. Too many people knew me just by name, so I was sort of a curiosity, but none of them knew me as a person, except for a couple of the people who invited me, who were very nice, of course. And it's not such fun to be part of something, to be a curiosity. Not for me, at least. I'm not that kind of person. I don't like. I would much rather be sociable in a normal way than having a lot of attention as one of the founders that everybody knows the name of. So I have an issue with this.
Yeah,
it may be easier for those who are not so well known, or maybe now it's okay. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I actually never thought about this issue, so I never found it as an issue. So, like, having fame in Best.
No,
but
it's I didn't either, not until going there.
Okay, fair enough.
I did meet some. I did get in a couple of people that I did get to know that were really nice. Everybody was nice, of course, but yeah.
Yeah. So, like, on the same thread, if, like, what we try to do, for example, is to start different projects. We're trying to, like, involve. So one was like a podcast that the guys are still bringing on. One thing was some video or like webinars, or sort of, that Clelia was bringing around. We started like the mentorship program, for example, that we we started all a set of different topics that are different, like that would take the interest of people from different perspectives, thinking that not all people want to actually meet in person. Some just want to do this, some just want to do that, and then like we have this newsletter that just sends the news on what's going on, that I believe that many people read, although we don't receive much feedback. But my point is, what else? What is missing? That is not, like, do you need more like one single aim? So we say, okay, we are fixing this, and then we just pick whoever is interested in that, and we leave away all the rest. Or is better to keep this approach, but then it didn't prove to be very effective until now?
I don't know. I really don't know. For me, I haven't kept in touch with Best, really. So now it was because you contacted me that because I don't mind that at all. I find it hard to get the overview, to see what's happening in Best right now, to understand it all. I tried a while back and realized that no, there's so many committees and so many parallel things that are happening. And that's probably the same for the alumni. So
no, for the alumni, it's not that complicated.
Okay.
For the alumni is absolutely not complicated. No, I think that getting too involved in Best is a bit of an issue. And as you said before, you don't really want to be the one who influences stuff. Like, you may be there ready for advice, while you don't want to be the one who takes any decision, or even influences directly any decision. But from the alumni point of view, I don't really think that there is such complication. The way I see it growing, after this first attempt of being directly fully international, and that's it, what I saw is that we probably need to leverage the existing group of friends that were born under that period, and see how open they are to extend there to extra people that are still probably relevant for them. But and yeah, so again, this is an open question, but the very direct question would be, would you would you just bring your friends and say, okay, let's subscribe to this alumni thing, and maybe next time we meet up, we open the meeting to other alumni, and if no one shows up, whatever, but we will meet, right? And
Sure.
and move on from there, right? So I'm hoping that if many of this happen around, eventually we will have a new network of alumni that is parallel to the one of students, and can eventually then contribute, or have different aims, of course, than the one from the students, but also same aims for some for some parts, right? Like promote European amongst Europeans.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, the thing is, I'm currently not. I have a, how shall I put it? I don't have an active network of friends or other contacts in from Best. I have one whom I've gone on to be a good friend with, so I see her every now and then. But apart from that, I don't have an active network. But I have a passive one that I can draw upon, and who seem to be quite interested in being in touch when I ask them because of this issue. So again, I'm back to sure. It's something we could do, or I could do, I could be part of. But in a way, there has to be some kind of concept that I can use. Because I don't really see myself right now contacting those guys without a reason to make the contact. Because they're not currently who I see. So I don't mind involving them at all. But and I would hope the same would go for them. If something comes up, that they wouldn't mind contacting me at all. But yeah, we need if there is something like from you guys saying, okay, now we're trying to revive the alumni network. Why don't you get your friends together and discuss this topic, or help us with this, or whatever? Then it could work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the key would be to have a first sort of aim or project to
maybe
yeah. Okay, fair.
That's my idea, at least. But I'd be, as usual, I'm always open to other suggestions.
Oh, it's fine. Like, I think the main point is to get the ideas from someone who didn't think about it before, maybe, or he thought from a different point of view, because the risk of being involved is then you speak with the same people and then you get biased by the idea that have already been around. So it's important to have a different perspective. Good. Yeah. Claire, do you have any other questions? Because like we're getting
yeah, for sure. I think no, I agree with you. Probably needs to be very specific. Just wanted to give one clarification. Basically, Best Alumni Network was born to support local groups.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like so for example, there were some alumni between 2016, 17, no, actually before, I think it started in 2014, as far as I remember. They had some initiatives discussing the alumni business camp. So that was, let's say, workshops, not just workshops, a lot more, but for alumni and students, but mostly alumni, for entrepreneurial ideas, so launching startups. And that was with the aim of gathering alumni of that kind, so alumni who wants to launch a startup. Now, something that we are going to do is having a workshop on FIRE, which stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. And then in parallel, there's also this mentorship program in collaboration with BEST. So probably like alumni need to be just to find the thing that they are interested in, but it won't be the same for everyone because there are thousands of alumni. Basically, why Best Alumni Network was born, it was to provide the frame, like you said, kind of a framework. So we have a account, of course. We are a no-profit, so if anyone, I don't know, you want to organize an event in Lisbon for alumni, a workshop, or a business camp, or just a different kind of camp for alumni with a specific interest, a specific topic they want to discuss, startup, early retirement, I don't know, whatever. Then if there's any money you have to give to, I don't know, the location, for example, where the meeting is going to take place, BAN can pay for it. You don't need to found no profit for alumni at a local level. You can rely on BAN to do that job for you. So you don't have the bureaucracy overwhelming bureaucracy, Belgian bureaucracy above you. That's on Best Alumni Network, and you focus on whatever is your interest. So that's why Best Alumni Network was born, just to support local groups. Then it's hard to tell local, they are not LBGs anymore, right? Because they are just cities where alumni live. So I think what Davide tried to do, not on his own, was to get in touch with one alumnus per city to tell them, look, this is what Best Alumni Network offers. Do you want to take advantage of it? Yes or no? There has not been many yeses for now, because anyway, it's like kind of nominating yourself as a main organizer. So it's either you who really believe in a specific thing, it could be, I don't know, mentorship face-to-face rather than online, because the one that we have in collaboration with Best is online. It's not face-to-face. It could be a workshop. It could be, these kind of things. So yeah, that was just to, I don't know, to see what you think about all of this. Then of course the pandemic didn't help, but we are still here.
Yeah, it helped in one sense, and that was that everybody got even more used to using online tools to communicate. So
yeah, a bit fed up of using them, maybe. But
true. Absolutely true.
But after looking at the window that you have just next to you, we wouldn't mind coming have a face-to-face meeting over there.
No, you're welcome. It's nice here. It's a good place.
Well. Yeah, regarding the framework anyway, like the other bit that we try to have is like to really ease in even the connectivity and standardize like for everyone. So you just have work environment that is pretty standard, with Trello or whatever, or to have mailing lists that are structured and are easy to use. Like you don't need to you don't need to rethink every time the whole wheel. But yeah, like it seemed like the value of this is not been. I think it shows its real value only after a bit. The beginning, so the beginning has to be a bit more driven by emotions rather than from like practical reasons and time saving systems, let's say.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a bit of our story here.
How far along are you? What is your next step that you're planning to do?
Well, I am an ex-president now, so I don't know. I need to let I need to leave the new guys choose. But I guess the point was to scale up as a number. I'm not sure about the strategy, like whether they want to try and keep the same or change it. Claire, I don't know if you know something more than me, but
no, the strategy is still the same. Again, it's not so straightforward to get in touch with one alumnus per city across. Could target even just 5 cities to start with. I mean, you start with just a smaller numbers. It's not the goal is not to get in touch with one alumnus per LBG that ever existed in the history of Best. That would be nice, but it's not. You need to start small, in my opinion. How to do that is not the what we have in mind. Just the advisory board, not the executive board, is that to have more face-to-face meetings. First of all, because people got fed up with online meetings, like you, Davide, said. And second, because of what Ida said, so she convinced me even more. It was like, very relatable. So if you sit together for long enough, then you understand a few things. Otherwise, it's a lot more challenging.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was it for me. Thank you very much, Ida. I don't have any more questions, but that's also thanks to the very clear. Yeah, I mean, we are engineers after all. You have a very clear structure in your head. You are a self-guided person. Not everyone is like that. So yeah, I'm happy. Thank you. I don't know if you, Davide, have any further comments or questions to close with.
Well, I just have the hope to actually see more of this, whatever it is, really, events, meetings, or even conversation online, or philosophy sessions, or political sessions, even like happening. That this is. This is a hope that I keep having. So this is the only thing that I would close with.
So who's chairing those initiatives right now then? Is that you, or who's the most active driving force right now?
The exec. So yeah, Best has one executive board, president, secretary, and treasurer, and one advisory board.
For the
just
alumni?
made of 3 people for the alumni. Yes,
for
that's
the alumni. Okay.
Best alumni network.
Yeah.
That's it. There is nothing else. So it's just us 6 people, and the executive board, of course, it's a lot more busy with the representing the organization, making sure that the communication is going ahead, that BAN is doing the right thing, Best Alumni Network is doing the right thing for alumni and for besties. The secretary deals with the Belgian bureaucracy, and the treasurer, well, it's self-explanatory. But yeah, it's quite some work for an alumnus. We are a lot less busy than the corresponding positions in Best, because obviously we can leverage our experience as professionals, and the organization is a lot smaller and a lot simpler than Best, because we want to keep it simple, at least at this stage. We don't want to overcomplicate, and we also have jobs, and a life and a family, so we can't overcomplicate it, especially right now. But yeah, the executive board are the most active people. I can send you their email address to just if you want to get in touch with them. And they all have kids, by the way, so they are not they are busy people, but they make it.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Oh, it was very nice talking to you.
Likewise.
I'm thinking that if you need me in the future, feel free to contact me again. I can't promise that I will be actively suggesting things to Best or the Best alumni, but I'm very happy to be contacted. And I'll definitely consider what you said, David, related to trying to make more out of the alumni. It is a good thought. So.
Yeah, mostly it's a sitting resource that is waiting there to be used, right? And it's a pity not to use it, especially because there is a need. The need is there. I can feel it, and this sense of union between Europeans is there because of organization like us, and there are people like us that need to keep promoting it. So yeah.
Agree.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Very nice talking to you. Have a good day.
You too. Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.